is going to be is subsisting by with grain produced from wells that are going to be going dry. The comparable number for China is 130 million people being fed with grain produced from irrigation wells that will be going dry. And you begin putting this together, and you can see, one, that this overpumping phenomenon is pretty much is confined to the last half century or so, because up until that time we didn't have the pumping capacity anywhere in the world really to deplete aquifers. Now we do, and we're just beginning to see the first countries, Saudi Arabia being a prime example, running into the wall here, so to speak. So the interesting thing is that water tables are falling in so many countries at the same time, and that includes the United States. It's not going to threaten famine here, but under the Great Plains of the United States, and states like Texas and Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, eastern Colorado, that part of the country is being, they have quite a bit of irrigation, mostly for corn production, and they're pumping from the Ogallala aquifer, which is also a fossil aquifer. And then in California, water tables are falling almost everywhere because of the tightening water supply there. But for the world as a whole, and I could talk about Mexico, I could talk about Yemen, I could talk about Pakistan, I could talk about Spain, but there's so many countries now where water tables are falling, and we're over-consuming. I mean, we've created sort of a water bubble food economy, and that bubble's going to burst one of these days, country by country. It's burst in Saudi Arabia. There are many more countries on that list. I just don't think, Gary, that the world is prepared for the tightening of the food supply that will come from as more and more irrigation wells go dry.
I appreciate your overview. I would like to then bring it back to the United States and give us a more in-depth hypothesis of what could happen. And let me just lead into it with this. Many of the apologists who don't want to see anything change with environmental regulations keep saying, yes, but it'll be 200 years before the glaciers melt, like on Antarctica, the two major ones there, one the size of Spain, one the size of France, or Greenland, 3 times the size of Texas. And I say, hold on a second. How do you know? I've interviewed all the leading climatologists I could find on this, and they say that we're in chaos theory now, that we don't know when the large chunks, because A, they found that there were multiple lakes that we never knew existed under the ice. They thought there was 2 miles of ice and it was solid ice. Now we're finding out it's not solid ice everywhere. Also, they never knew that there were caverns in Greenland that look like a gigantic waterfalls, where there are millions upon hundreds of millions of gallons a day pouring down in these crevices, which then hit the rock, and we don't have any cameras down there, so we don't have any measurements to see what's happening with that water that melts on the top of the glacier that goes down. Is it acting as a skid? Is it able to move it? They have theoretical models, but no actual models. Then they didn't realize that much of the ice that's melting off and breaking off Greenland was coming under the water, not just what you see on top. We've all seen a ice wall, and suddenly it breaks and falls in the water in a big splash. We didn't know that it was what was breaking off underneath the water that no one was seeing. And then suddenly you'd see these icebergs. And now you see 10 times more icebergs around where this is, these ledges, and this ice is going in. So clearly we miscalculated. Also, you have thousands and thousands and thousands of little lakes, depending upon the time of year, that could be 4 foot deep, 8 foot deep, 10 foot deep, 2 miles across, that we didn't used to have because the summers weren't that hot. Now they are. That is melting. You have major fractures everywhere. And so when the people I speak to say the following, it's political cleverness when they say, don't worry, it's 200 years. But they said it would be 200 years before the Larsen B shelf melted and cracked off, and it was 29 days after a conference said it would be 200 years. The buffering, that which actually holds the major glaciers on South in Antarctica from falling faster into the ocean, those have been breaking off. Therefore, it's like someone pushing to get in the door, and you've got 25 people on the other side pushing to keep them out, and one at a time, the people that you're having put their shoulder against the door break their shoulders and fall down, and now you're down to a few people, and the door is starting to open. We don't know when we will see a 1-foot rise. Don't think about 200 feet from Antarctica if it all melted. Don't think about 23 feet from Greenland. Think about 1 foot. 1 foot, that's enough to get water into the New York City subway system and the underground systems of Washington, D.C., of Savannah, of major cities up and down the east coast of the United States, because remember, our infrastructures are frequently below ground, sometimes 10 to 20 stories below ground. You would see a massive problem of having to re-engineer to keep the water from coming in, because once it starts coming in, it's not going to stop. And then also you would have entire cities gone, like Dubai, because all of Dubai is built at or below sea level. And especially the insanity, I said it at the time, of building those artificial islands done in the shape of palm leaves, where you have $10 and $15 million homes. If the ocean rises 6 inches, all of those pilings are resting on sand. There's no rock, sand. And now when I run up the beach, I just did a championship race last weekend in Florida. I flew in, I did 3 championship races.
Did you say in Florida?
In Florida, I was in Fort Lauderdale, and what was interesting, I got there late at night, and the race was 7 in the morning. And as I was loosening up, I'm running up the beach, and I look, and I suddenly see something. I'm seeing seaweed on the bottom of buildings and on the bottom of swimming pool walls.
Really?
I'd never seen that before. And I'm not talking about a few feet, and I'm thinking, holy cow. So there was a guy on a tractor that goes up and down the beach to smooth it out, and I said to the guy, I said, do you all have to bring sand in here often? He just laughed. He said, are you kidding? He said, in the last 3 years, we have been bringing in hundreds and hundreds of gigantic truckloads of sand just for this area, because it keeps getting washed out, because it keeps rising. He said, come out here at night, come out here at 3 in the morning, and you'll see how high the water table is. It's higher than it's ever been before. But I'm seeing some sea. And now you have from Key West, no, not Key West, but from Homestead to above almost Orlando to Daytona Beach, you have over 10,000 high-rise buildings built right up to the sea, and they're all built on sand, not bedrock. There is no bedrock. Pilings, concrete pilings to hold the buildings up, but the base of those has to rest on something. If they rest on rock, that's a good thing. If they rest on sand, the water gets down there, the sand's going to erode, and it tips and cracks, causes cracks in the building. Dubai, the whole city is built like that, and they also built one of the largest underground malls in the world, all built below sea level, and that it is rising. And I actually talked with a building engineer who came to see me for a health issue, and he said that it's the worst kept secret in Dubai. Every contractor, every architect knows damn well that that city is doomed, yet they're all making money, so nobody wants to tell the people in power, stop writing the checks, you've done it all wrong, this is all going to be a nightmare. Beautiful architecture, I commend them on their architecture, but just stupid in how it was done.